Okay, so loans. Keep in mind that most of us will have a loan at some point in our lives, either for a house or a car. Those are the two big things that you take money out to buy because you can't afford to buy them for cash. And again, I've stated this before, and I'll state it again. Nobody wants to live in a house that they can buy for cash. It just doesn't work that way. Okay? So knowing that going in, there's two things you're going to do. Either you're going to need to know the payment. When I say payment, I really mean monthly payment. Okay, you need to know that, or you're going to need to know how much can I borrow. And by the way, if you need to know how much you can borrow, of course, that will also tell you how much you can earn or how much you can buy. And what I mean by that is this, is clearly when you go to buy a house, if you can borrow $150,000 and you have a little bit saved up for a down payment, why then you can afford that's what you can afford to buy. So these are the two things we're going to need to know ever. And that's just how it is. Now, a couple of terminologies. Down payment. This is money that you have saved. Okay, you pay toward the home or car. You pay this much toward the house. And you borrow the rest. So purchase price, that is what you agree to buy it for, is equal to always the down payment plus purchase price equal to down payment plus amount borrowed. Now, amount borrowed has a name. This is present value. That's where we're going to start with that guy. Okay? So we will be doing one of two functions always, as far as I'm concerned, with loans. Either I'll be doing a present value, finding out how much I can afford to borrow, or I'll be doing a payment. That's the only two things I'm going to worry about. Okay? So we're going to start off with a couple of payment ones first. So let's say I do, let's say I buy a $300,000 house. I'm going to get 4.6% interest, 30-year loan. Most everything I do in this class will be 30-year loans. That's the most common. We're going to put 10% down. What that means, we're going to pay $30,000 is our down payment. That's 10% of $300,000. That means we need to borrow $270,000. So to Excel we go. And I am not kidding when I say it's the same formula over and over and over again. Bam. Equals PMT. That's what I don't know. How'd you know to define that one, Jay? Because there's 5 players every time, and I know them all but this guy. The rate, the number of years, months rather, is 360. Present value is negative A1. Always has to be negative. And then notice how the future value is grayed out. That's because it's set up for this, and it's set up to assume that the future value will be 0. You need to make a $1,300 payment a month in order to pay this house off. So check it out. Equals this guy times parentheses 1 plus interest. That should be interest 1, but I forgot to name it interest 1. So not the end of the world. Oops. Now listen, if I add payment, I'm going to be going in debt further. That's stupid, Jay. If you subtract the payment, you goober. Boom. Now I'm going to drag that thing down to the end, 361, just so you can see it happening. 361, I said. Boom, 0, around the button. Yeah? Nice, that's hot. That's how I know I'm right. You see that? There's no screwing around about it. This is my monthly payment, $1384.14. That's it. Now, how much did this house cost me total? Well, I made $360 of these payments, true? But I also paid $30,000 down payment. That also is my money that I paid. You have to include all of it. This is the total cost of the house. Whoa, Jay, holy cow, that can't be right, dog. The house only cost $300,000. Oh, it's totally right, babe. 300. Oops, that's a million. There you go. We spent $228,000 on interest. Well, that's terrible. Banks are a ripoff. So help me God. The next person that tells me that banks are a ripoff like that, I'm just going to go nuts. Here's the deal, friend. If you borrow $20 from a friend for the weekend and you get them back to them on Monday or something, the normal response is you take them to lunch, or maybe you make him a banana bread, or maybe you get the guy a 6-pack of beer, or whatever. Okay, is that idea that $50, maybe $100, couple $100, $1,000, $1,000 you ante up a little bit more, obviously. Dude, you borrowed $270,000. And not overnight, friend. You had it for 30 freaking years. You are going to be paying a boatload of interest. You would charge your friend that kind of money too. Just FYI. Okay? We'll be finding those two numbers out a lot, so just be aware of this. Now, this next part I'm going to do, I don't want you to do on every problem. I just want you to understand something here. So just watch and be amazed. Okay? I used to owe this much. After the first payment, I now owe this much. That means I paid $350 toward what we call the principal. That is, toward what I actually owe. But you're like, Jay, I feel like we spent $1,384. Oh, we did, friend. Where'd the rest of it go? Where'd the other $1,000 go? Well, it went to interest, you see. So equals payment minus interest, or minus principal. And there you have it. Now, what I'm going to do with that is this. I show you this because it's important to know. As you buy a house someday, you will find that that you can deduct the mortgage interest up to a certain amount. Okay? And so all these values over here are the parts that you'll be going toward your deduction. Second of all, look, it takes dadgum near halfway through the loan. 181. It's almost identically halfway through the year, 15 years before you're paying more toward the principal than you are toward interest. For the first 15 years of the loan, you're paying more in principal than you are, or more in interest than you are in principal every month. So what I want to talk about is this. This is just a terminology thing for you. This payment up here is often referred to as the P&I payment. P&I payment. What that means is principal and interest payment, okay? And it'll always add up too. If you look at this plus this is always $1,384. Doesn't matter which of those lines we choose. That's always going to be true. Okay, that's number one thing. Number two thing, at some point you will have a house and you'll want to deduct the mortgage interest, and they'll say to you, you'll get a statement from the bank, and they will tell you that this is what you paid in interest this year. And what they will have done, they will have gone in for that year and they will have added up how much interest you paid. In essence, all they're doing is adding up this column C. So you paid $12,000 in interest. That is deductible on your taxes. I am not an accountant. You should ask your own personal tax advisor, but it is a fact up to a point. Okay? So the things that I will ask you on this house is payment. $1,384.14. Total cost. Total cost was $528,209. And change. Interest 228,209.33. Those are the kind of questions I will ask you on these problems. Okay. Another kind of question I could ask you is this. You have $20,000 saved up. Okay. You can get a 4.2% loan for 30 years. You can afford $1,000 a month payment. Well, what's missing here? Future value is obviously zero. Present value is what is missing. So if you look at it, there's interest, there's time, sort of. It's 360 months. This is payment. And future value, of course, is zero. So present value is what we're looking for. Okay? To do this problem, we are going to go in here like so. But I'm not going to do any calculations there. I'm going to do it over here. I'm going to type in my interest, which is 0.042. Come on, you hippie. Why aren't you typing? Okay, here we go. Equals PV. The rate divided by 12, comma 360, comma negative the payment. I can afford to borrow 204,491. So I didn't even ask what this question was, but 204,291.80. That's how much I can afford to borrow. Are you with me? How much can I afford to buy then? Well, I can afford to buy 224,291.80 because I can add my down payment to this to get to the purchase price. Now, how can I guarantee I'm right? Well, that's why I love this about Excel. I'm going to go equals A1 times parentheses 1 plus interest divided by 12 minus payment. Hey, I'm right. Yay. Okay, perfect. So that's how much house you can afford to buy. Okay. And those are really the two basic questions that anybody asks. I remember when we were looking for our first house, I think we figured 700 was our maximum amount of money we could afford to buy or pay per month. And we had I think we had 20 grand saved up. It's been a long time ago. And we could get a 7.5% interest. Again, this was a long time ago, 20 some odd years ago. And yeah, so we went. Well, first, here's the problem. We started looking at houses, okay, and there's some of them I just fell in love with. I'm like, oh, I love this place. Oh, I love this place. Oh, I love this place. Yeah, here's the problem though. Couldn't afford it. Now I come home every time. I'm like, oh God, I can't afford this place. So it's stupid. We just got, I guess, so it was so irritating. I had to figure it out ahead of time. So it looked like we could afford to borrow $100,000, okay, and then we put another 20,000 down, 120,000. No, I think we had 30 grand. We must have had 30. Yeah, and so 100,000, so equals this amount there that I can borrow plus 30 grand. We could afford about $130,000 house. We found one for $135,000, I think, and we bought it. And I remember it was not touch and go, but I mean, it was like, wow, that was all we could do to afford that place when we first bought it. Okay. It's kind of a cool deal. It's fun. Those are the questions that you will be asked to do pretty easily. Now, that said, we will do more on Saturday. Okay, that is tomorrow. And we'll also, next week, we're going to take a look at refinancing and paying extra. So this week, we'll talk a little bit about paying extra tomorrow too. But for tomorrow, I want you to be comfortable with this bit right here. Really, the only two things I'll ask you to do are payment, find the monthly payment, or I know the payment and I'm looking for how much I can afford to borrow. Okay? Those are the biggies.